conversations with members of their Mapping Future Imaginaries network. My name is Linda, and I'm delighted today to be speaking with Dr. Nancy Mauro-Flude. Great to see you, Nancy. I'd like to invite you to say something about yourself for everyone.
Hi, thank you, Linda, for inviting me to have this conversation. And hello, everyone who may be watching this eventually. I'm a feminist creative technologist, performance artist and theorist, and my research focuses on core questions relating to embodied cognition, machine learning, ecological systems, and how feminist methodologies can inform the holistic advancement of these fields. And I lead the Next Nature Networks, computational poetics, choreography and low carbon creation studios at the College of Design and Social Context at RMIT University. As a practicing artist, I'm represented by Bet Gallery, and I also am founder of Despoinia's Coven, a feminist-led web server, homebrewed since 2008, which is an atelier, an experiential, pedagogical kind of science fiction mothership. And yeah, my contributions encompass art making, somatic inquiry, non-fiction, and scholarly writing. So it's a little bit about me.
Wonderful. What an amazing bio, like so interesting. And it really leads us into the question I like to ask everyone in the conversations, which is to invite you to speak about how your work kind of connects with some of the ideas of the MFI, which is on these kind of speculative futures. So I know you have some great work to share with us.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, I guess where I can start is I've been thinking about cosmographic networks, and I first heard the word cosmography well, maybe about 10 years ago, and I was thinking how exciting it was because it incorporates well, the ecology in the sense that it is the study of the universe, but this simultaneous embrace of terrestrial and celestial subjects, right? So the theatre of nature, but also the signals and transmissions that could be from elsewhere, but also could be from other living beings. And so it decentered the idea of the human as the centre of everything, which I really liked. And so recently I've been thinking about cosmographic networks and looking at the world around me and thinking, well, what is a cosmographic network and how could I, how are these actually already operating on, in a sense, a very micro level? So in a sense, my, coming at things from an ethnographic perspective in the sense of observing the world around me, and at the same time using a kind of form of investigative aesthetics, but in a micro way. And when I say micro, it's the small things, and I think tell us a lot about how we are adapting and how the world around us is adapting in a sort of form of cultural anti-venom in some ways. So what, when you talk about speculation, I guess some of this is speculation because I don't use, when I say science fiction, I mean that in a sense that a lot of science begins with fiction. We see a lot of predictions that the evidence in science now is proving was once hundreds of years ago proposed by say, theatre makers or literature, or in dance, for instance. There's, the second brain, for instance. The dance has been talking about the fact that there's the dance field, that there's neurotransmitters all through the body, and it's not, and science has, recently come up with the evidence for that. So, in the sense, when you talk about speculation, I think that's a very important area in regards to poetics. And I think it's something that's increasingly becoming neglected. But going into, what we're looking at here, I'm just showing some snapshots of a day in the life of walking down the road and seeing these cockatoos who were eating. What we're seeing now is cockatoos sitting on an electricity wire, obviously very, very interested in eating the sunflowers. If you can scroll up a little bit, Linda, we've got a bigger shot of that. Scrolling up, yeah. And the funny thing was, if you can see here, at the time, my partner was like, "Oh, those cockatoos, they're eating the sunflowers," and they were really offended. And if you can scroll down a bit, sorry, thank you, Linda, just because you could see them like running away because someone was trying to shoo them away. And I thought, well, this is a cosmographic network. This is infrastructure. So we've got electrical infrastructure. We have a habitat of cockatoos, but also a house. And the cockatoos are clearly enjoying the sunflowers. And I just thought, this is a beautiful, this is a form of infrastructure that when we talk about infrastructure, often people think about a business and utilities, but in a sense, this is also an infrastructure or a cosmographic network. And in a sense, it's, obviously, or maybe not obviously, but it's interrupting dominant assumptions and logics that inform our futures. And perhaps if we could, my proposal is, if we could actually look at what is going on in the world around us to better inform what constitutes a caring habitat and a more tacit relation to, what is actually happening around us in our own localities, because otherwise things become objectified in alarming ways. So this idea of bringing these cosmographic networks and counter perspectives and peripheral acuities to say plural voices in the world around us, I think is it's a part of my research, and it's a part of what I'm looking at the moment. In the sense, it's also called, as Genevieve Bell calls them, cyber physical systems. And I like to definitely not make that binary. So that's why I'm thinking about cosmographic networks, or drawing upon these, biopolitical social formations, because I don't think we can separate these things as much as people were doing in the past. So, the idea that things are leaking and morphing, or things are more porous and definitely not as inert as a lot of assumptions come with it. So when we're talking about mapping imaginaries, this is how I'm mapping, or speculatively mapping around me. And I also have been thinking, in a sense, these cockatoos and these sunflowers and this electrical utility and this house, he's kind of, I'm obviously not a science, but it's kind of a form of entrainment, right? They're looking, in being attentive in that sense. And I would love it if you could go to this video that I took of my friend's daughter at the beach.
Do you want me to play now?
Yeah. Yes, please. So in a sense, we're seeing a simple, admiration of a child looking at the birds, but in a sense you can see this kind of sensory biology at work, so-called in the wild, but it's the way that the water, the birds and the child is responding to each other, and the way that their proprioception, in a sense, in what we're looking at in the timing and this entrainment of the living gestures responding to each other. So when you see her move back, I can't see it on the screen actually.
It finished. We could play it again.
Yeah, I mean, it's just to look at so that you see their arms coming up, and it's a very small thing, but the idea that I think we have more. We're more inscribed in the world around us. We can resonate with that. And I mean, it sounds maybe a little bit esoteric, but I'm thinking about what the consequences of infrastructure is if it's broadly understood as, a media ecology, and when I say media, I mean it in the broader sense. And that's where the cosmographic networks come in. So I was asking these questions and basically looking around at my everyday life and capturing moments like this. So, electrical wires, eucalyptus, sunflowers, sulphur-crested cockatoos, which also, are commonly seen in Australian suburbs and gardens, but they have their own law, right? They also mean for a lot of First Nations people coming together of friends. So there's all of these other narratives that go on with these networks. So to include these constructions or these arrangements, which allows different kinds of knowledge to be validated, and these energetic sources that waver and flutter and have restorative properties in a sense. So this biological matter and the minerals and the rudiments, which, electricity is something we rely on, but obviously the cables and the wires are formed of particular, mind elements that, have come from, somewhere, that also carry their own resonance. So, and they all have a particular contingency. So, if it would be good, I guess my proposal or what I'm thinking through of is to have, obviously this is being more situated in our habitat and, reclaiming our capacities to think and feel and imagine and embody in a more tacit way with the distribution of these networks that are happening around us. It's not just about radio, but that's also, an important part of it. There's also these obfuscated elements that I think is important. If we bring them to the fore and are aware of them, perhaps we don't limit our awareness so much, and that could also affect behavior and giving or centering other intermediaries, which is really important to be able to learn how to live with pluralities and with difference and with a lot of other morphologies that actually are very restorative and have a lot to offer us. So so mapping those invisible elements, or not maybe they're not necessarily invisible, but drawing them out and looking at the choreography of these living beings and the lived consequences of these nascent kind of biosocial cultural structures. And when we're thinking of emergent technologies, that, thinking about how the biological and the social are often quite intertwined. And for these developments to be fully actualised, I think there needs to be particular structural changes, not only in production and consumption systems, but communication infrastructures that can often delimit possibilities for living otherwise.
Now, it's so interesting, Nancy. I mean, I'm listening and kind of making a lot of connections with my own work in terms of thinking differently about occupations, rights, civics, citizenships, and how those need to be kind of expanded out from the human. And it's really wonderful to hear about your ideas on the kind of the structural, the organizational, the kind of the ways in which these networks might be thought differently as well. I think it's just such interesting work, and also really important to think of scale, in those situations, so that we're not there's such a persuasion towards grand ideas or big data, and actually, but thinking about those kind of micro observations or the micro moments, I think are so powerful and do enable us to wander into these intellectual ideas and kind of experimental spaces as well, and to shift ourselves out of the center of the picture. So it's really fascinating to see not only your ideas, but the practices by which you come to your ideas, I suppose, is what, the kind of ways in which you're observing these moments and taking notice of the moments in order to be processing and considering some of the ideas that situate us to the side, and think differently about those. So really fascinating to learn more about your work, and thank you so much for giving a brief introduction. And below the video, as people are watching this, there'll be links to your work for people to look at more deeply and with a bit more time. So just like to thank you again for your video conversation with us at Mapping Future Imaginaries.
Thank you very much.